Hello, hello! Welcome back, everybody. It's Franco Aurelio. Oh my gosh, long time no see. I'm here with my buddy Pinesap. Pinesap, say what's up. Say what's up to the
Hey,
audience.
what's up, everybody? Good to see y'all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So today we're gonna be doing a lot of I don't know if shilling is the appropriate word, but I don't know. I find it funny to say, oh, I'm gonna, because I was with some church homies today, and I was saying, oh yeah, I gotta get going soon. I'm gonna shill for Pope Francis in a bit. So, but hey, shill for Papa, shill for Papa. I guess that's the only shilling that's allowed. Okay. What do you think? What do you think?
Dude, I agree. I mean, yeah, he's the only person I'll shill for. Jesus and his vicar, I'll shill all day.
Yeah, and Saints as well too. We would add, I guess. But anyways, yeah. So me and Pinesap, we're gonna be debunking every single claim, at least so for the people that are watching the live stream and don't have the context, I posted a video on my Instagram asking people to give their claims of, or their evidence, their proof that Pope Francis committed heresy or that he's the Antichrist. And so we dropped that all. So they just dropped all the proof that they can get in the comment section, and it was a lot. It was a lot of them. And I kind of purposely made the video a little bit irritating, kind of like annoying, to make sure people would like, like kind of like, get ego invested into it. But I still try to keep it charitable either way, not to the point where it was uncharitable. But we got a lot of comments, and so because of that, we decided to really narrow it down to the main issues, because some of the comments were just repeating each other. A lot of the stuff was just like the essential topics that we got to talk about. So we will be talking about a lot of the main things, and at the very end, we will read the main comments just to make sure that we hit what we needed to hit. But if there are, we might, I don't know, we might do a part two if it's really needed. But we're probably gonna hit like all of them, honestly, all that are valid at least. But yeah, so but before we get started, I do want to let you guys know, we're not some leftist, women should be priests, type of people. We submit to the church. We think that Catholicism and Zionism are not compatible. Catholicism and feminism are not compatible. Feminism meaning that men and women are literally equal. Not that they should be they should have both dignity, but that they are literally equal, which is satanic. We also acknowledge that liberalism and has links to Satanism. So we submit to the Catholic Church, right? We're not some disobedient Catholics, all right? I mean, kind of when we're defending our blessed Holy Father, it's kind of said that, like, yeah, we are being obedient Catholics.
Which that's the true traditional position. So when people are like, "You're not being traditional defending the Pope," I'm like, bro, every single medieval Catholic would have like put your head on a pike for some of the things that people say online. I oftentimes say that. I'm like, you literally would have been like burned at the stake for some of the things that you say.
Yeah, no, facts. So it's like it's well, I mean, death was a more kind of it was more common back then. Definitely, it wasn't as much of a big deal as it is now. But no, definitely, it's a lot. What he's saying is very true. A lot of the stuff that a lot of rad trads or leftists or a lot of both sides, a lot of what they're saying, they wouldn't do so hot back in the medieval times.
No.
But yeah, anyways, let's get started. So to start off, we will go with here, I have some notes taken down. We will start off with the "Who am I to judge?" So Pinesap, do you mind saying what happened? What's this about?
Yes. So the "Who am I to judge" comment came from something that Pope Francis said in relation to, there was a question asked about like a gay lobby in the church, and he was like, he made kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke where he's like, well, I don't know, no bishop or cardinals come up to me with a placard that says, "Hey, I'm gay, I'm the gay lobby," or something like that. So he started with a joke, and then he said, he then prefaced what he said. He said, but if there's someone who struggles with homosexuality and they're sincerely following the Lord and they are trying to live out the commandments, who am I to judge them, right? So the whole comment was based on, hey, now the word that he used, I think it would have been better to use same-sex attraction, but that's what he meant in the comment, right? He wasn't implying someone living a deviant homosexual lifestyle, just someone who, struggled with same-sex attraction, living out Christ in their lives. And he said, that person is not someone who I would hold judgment against because they're clearly trying to pursue the Lord, which we believe as Catholics, right?
Yeah. And he also explicitly in that scenario, he explicitly stated how like he's against that, the gay lobbying. He's against that.
Yeah.
He explicitly stated that. So it's not as if he was promoting or accepting homosexual acts as something good. He was talking like the context of that. What he was literally saying. You can read it if you want. Like the first time that I read it, it made sense to me. And then I'm seeing like people that are like actually like finding trouble with it. I'm like, how could you not understand what he meant by that? Go into exactly what he said. He literally was talking about like, yeah, like if it's a gay person that's, pursuing the Lord, trying to pursue the Lord, and hence trying to, give up their sinful ways, who am I to judge? Because it's like, yeah, who are we to judge if like there's a gay person that struggles with gay attractions, but they're still trying to be faithful to God? It's like, who are we to judge? Right? It makes complete sense. Right? That also reminds me, there was also this moment where he tells a kid that his father is in heaven, and people had an issue with that because I think the kid's father was an atheist or something.
Yes. So the context of it, there was a child who was crying because he said that his father was an atheist and that essentially that he didn't believe in God during his life and his father died. And this kid was heartbroken over it and was crying. It was a very emotional moment. And then Pope Francis hugs this child in a very like deep, heartfelt moment. It was hard for me to watch that and not feel like total love for the Holy Father. And then he asks the crowd, he says, does God abandon his children? And they all exclaimed, no, of course not. And he explains, he's like, clearly this father, God could have mercy on this father because he's like, well, this father had his child baptized. This father sent his son to Catholic school. So he essentially was saying, not that his father was in heaven, but that, with all of these corresponding actions, maybe there's a hope that he repented on his deathbed and that God had mercy on his soul. All he was saying was being hopeful. He didn't declare that, you can be an atheist and go to heaven, right?
Right, and of course, there's also perfect ignorance. So it's like I think a lot of Protestants had an issue with that because it's like that because to them a lot of to me it seems that a lot of Protestants believe that if people don't hear of Jesus Christ then they're like going to hell or something, which is not the case. There's a lot of people that have never heard of Jesus Christ or that might have heard of him, but that and never actually like converted totally to Christianity or Catholicism even, and they're still in heaven. Not because something else saved them, like Jesus still chose to save them, but it's because there is such thing as perfect ignorance where a person hasn't come to the full truth, either because of a past that has conditioned their mind to act a certain way, or because they just never heard of, they've never gotten properly evangelized by a Catholic. Right, it's like you can imagine if I'm very sure that there's instances where some Protestants might even the only outlets that they've had to the Catholic Church have been Catholics that have tried to tell them like you must submit to Rome and you're like totally uncharitable behavior, and that's their only outlet to the Catholic Church. So it's like you can kind of, and if they happen to die before like coming to the full truth of the Catholic Church, it's like, well, you can kind of see why maybe they didn't come to the truth before dying. So there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of factors that come into play, I would say, that can make a person fall under perfect ignorance. And again, of course, we don't know, we don't condemn people to hell. We can't judge in that aspect. We can judge actions and say, yeah, those actions probably are going to get you to hell, right? If you keep on going unrepentfully in those actions, sure, but we can't judge a person's soul whether they're going to go to hell, like definitely. Even the Catholic Church hasn't judged a single soul to this day that if they're in hell right now. Visions, that's different, but you know what I'm saying. So it's like, an atheist definitely can go to heaven, not because of their own works or because they just went to heaven automatically. It's like, no, like Jesus Christ chose to save that person. So no salvation outside the church. Yeah.
Now, I would nuance a bit what you did say, Franco.
Go ahead.
Uncharitable and correct you. So the father in that would not have invincible ignorance. Invincible ignorance is more like if I lived on a desert island and like literally never heard about Jesus ever and had no opportunity to.
Oh, right.
Um,
Okay, okay.
so that would be like if I was in total isolation, like I had physically no access to Christ at all.
Gotcha.
If you have access to Christ and but you're not like well educated, that's called vincible ignorance. And a soul in that situation is really not in a good situation at all. And
Right.
it generally is damnable. Um,
Uh-huh.
but here's a couple things to keep in mind. So invincible ignorance, as Father Michael Mueller says in the Catholic Dogma, does not save nor damns a man. So it's kind of like a state where it's like you're not damned because of it, but you're not saved because of it either. The way
Right.
that someone would be saved in a situation of an invincible ignorance, and to reiterate, that's like if you were on a desert island or something, is if they essentially tried to live out their life the best they could in
Yeah.
accord with natural law, and God could read their heart and see if this person came into contact with the church, they would want to be baptized and become Catholic, and thus
Yeah.
they would have what's called a baptism of desire.
Yeah,
So
sorry about that. I forgot to mention that part.
no, that's
Sorry.
totally fine. And essentially, that's the way to think about invincible ignorance. Invincible ignorance, you can only be saved in that situation if you have an implicit baptism of desire. If you don't have an implicit baptism of desire, meaning that, like, hypothetically, if you did come into contact with the church, you wouldn't convert or something. If you wouldn't, then you'll unfortunately be in hell. But if you would, and you just never had access to the church, then you can be saved.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Uh-huh.
Invincible ignorance. What I would say about the atheist gentleman is, and what Pope Francis was trying to emphasize was more that he did a lot of actions that were very kind of uncustomary for an atheist, like getting his child baptized or sending him to Catholic school. And Pope Francis was trying to say, maybe there's some hope there. Maybe he just struggled during his life, and on the very last moments, God gave him an opportunity to repent and say, I accept you, and thus, might have brought him out of that perilous situation of atheism. I think that would be a better way to kind of understand what Pope Francis was saying.
Gotcha. No, you're right. You're right about that. Sorry about that. Thanks for correcting me. That's good. That's good.
Of
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
man. And
There you go,
it
there you
gets
go.
confusing. Eschatology is a super confusing topic sometimes.
Yeah, no, because I when I first heard about invincible ignorance, I was like, okay, this is a little confusing, but I think it makes sense. But yeah, no. Then next we have the civil unions comment on, I believe that's gay marriage stuff.
So let me set the stage about that one. So there was some like left-wing documentary where, they clipped a part of what Pope Francis said, and he was like, civil union law. I supported it. And I remember when I was first Catholic, I was still a mad trad, I got so angry, dude. Like, I was so scandalized. I was angry. I was like, the Pope supports gay marriage. It's like, no, not at all. To give context, what he was talking about was in Argentina, there was going to be a vote for gay marriage, right? And and that was kind of like on the books. And Pope Francis, in order to kind of try and like stall that and not make it happen, proposed sort of like, for lack of a better term, like a compromise alternative or like a less worse thing, which was a civil union law. So the civil union law that he proposed was not, oh, two gay people can get married under the law. It was that if you lived in a household, like if a group of people, if people were living in a household, they could have access to things like healthcare and stuff like that. Now, that compromise is not ideal because the CDF did put out a document saying that Catholics should just say no straight up. But Pope Francis was trying to operate kind of in a no-win situation, and so it maybe wasn't the greatest approach, but he certainly was not trying to support gay marriage or anything like that.
Yeah, right. True. Now the Abu Dhabi document. Let's talk about that.
So I'll talk about like I believe it's the Abu Dhabi houses, like the church, and then there's the synagogue and the mosque that was built in the UAE, I'm pretty sure, and then the document saying God wills the plurality of all religions. So,
Inshallah.
yeah. So Pope Francis signed that document, and there was a lot of worry if Pope Francis was saying, does God actively will false religions to exist? Because if that was the case, that would be a heresy.
Yeah.
But when Bishop Athanasius Schneider asked Pope Francis, did you affirm that God's actively willing false religions to exist? He said no, emphatically. He's like, no, I do not believe that at all. And he said that I'm trying to think. He said essentially that it was only God's passive will. So passive will. So we talk about the will of God. Passive will is like God permits something to happen, meaning like we have access to our freedom as human beings, and that's for good and evil. And so when God permits something to happen, it doesn't mean that he approves of it, but it's like with our freedom, this can happen, right? So with our freedom, there's things like false religions, right? And Pope Francis said passive will. Active will would mean God is actively willing this to happen. So like when the flood happened, God actively willed for the flood to happen, right?
Holy crap. That makes so much sense.
God actively willed for the 10 Commandments to be, written and what have you.
So it's like when people talk about how come there's evil in the world, right? It's like technically because God allows it, that is passive will, but that's not his active will.
Yes, God does not actively will any evil to happen. We are it's kind of funny. We're children of our own consequences. Essentially, it's like because we chose to disobey God in the garden, we have to suffer with the evil that's on earth, right? It's like you play stupid games, you get stupid prizes, essentially.
Gotcha. Dang, I did not know about that difference. That's crazy.
Pretty cool, man. It's really cool.
I love the church. I love the church. It's so great. Okay, cool. Next is breed like rabbits. The breed like rabbits.
Yes. So what people were worried about with that comment is they were worried that Pope Francis was saying that so essentially the little clip that they like to take, the little quotation that they like to take that's clipped is it says in a 2015 interview, quote, some think that, excuse the language, that in order to be good Catholics, we have to be like rabbits. No, responsible parenthood. And what people thought he was doing was like promoting contraception use. He was not. What he was actually talking about was, if you read the full interview, here's the context. So he's talking about meeting a woman, and he said, I met a woman who some months ago in a parish who was pregnant with her 8th child, who had 7 C-sections, Pope Francis explained. But does she want to leave the 7 as orphans? This is to tempt God. I speak of responsible paternity. This is the way, a responsible paternity. The woman might say, no, but I trust in God. But God gives you methods to be responsible. Some think that, excuse me if I use the word, in order to be good Catholics, we have to be like rabbits. No, responsible parenthood. This is clear, and that is why in the church there are marriage groups, there are experts in this matter, there are pastors one can seek out, and I know so many, many ways that are licit and have helped this. So he's talking about this woman who has had 7 C-sections, and like she's not doing good health-wise, and he's like, you can practice responsible paternity and not leave your children as orphans, right? Your 7 children as orphans. And none of that involved contraception. None of that involved things like abortion or anything like that. He was just talking about getting the proper help within the church in order that she might practice responsible parenthood, which is perfectly orthodox, right?
Yes, sir. Awesome. Okay. So next is right. He said, like, I remember this explicitly. He said, like, proselytizing is a sin or something. Yeah, which is like first off, a lot of people like wanted to grab that quote and be like, oh, is Pope Francis saying that evangelizing is a sin? Like
evangelizing is a sin now.
So yeah, but his direct quote was like, I think he used the word proselytizing.
Yes, completely different context.
Hmm.
Actually, the CDF even put out a document. I remember Michael Lofton read it, but the CDF put out a document actually explaining the difference. And this is one of those funny issues where it's a language difference, right? So like if he says it in Italian or something, because of the language and the culture and the history, people know the difference automatically. They're like, oh yeah, proselytism, that's a bad thing, right? And evangelization is the good thing. But when we hear it in our culture, in our English speaking American culture, oftentimes when we think of proselytism, we think of what atheists call evangelization. So when we hear the term proselytism, we're thinking that Pope Francis is saying, oh, no evangelization. Evangelization is sinful. No, 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 no. It has a completely different definitional usage. So proselytism, to give a definition, is the trying to convert someone through false pretenses or false or illicit means. So
Gotcha.
if I like said like Franco, if you convert, I promise that you'll have like a big car and a big house and stuff like that. That's proselytism because I'm essentially trying to like bribe you, right? Or if I said Franco, if you convert to Catholicism, I won't kill you or something like that, you
That's
know? Or
coercion. That's that's
yeah,
that's coercion. Yeah.
yeah, it's coercion. And you know, there's also more minor examples like I'll give you money, you'll have a lot of political power, you'll have fame or something like that. Uh, those promises are proselytism because in there is no indwelling of the Holy Spirit working in our heart. That's just trying to convince people using illicit means, right?
Right.
Evangelization, which Pope Francis readily is for, he talks about it all the time. He is super about evangelization, is converting people not by our means, because we don't convert, but by giving witness to the faith and allowing the Holy Spirit to work in them,
Yeah.
right?
It's like I guess I definitely know. Like it's like, did Pope Francis say that telling people about Jesus is a sin? It's like, bruh. It's like really.
I mean, it's like you gotta. I mean, guys, listen. I don't like William of Ockham, but like Occam's razor here. Like, what's more likely that Pope Francis said? Did he say evangelization is a sin, or did he say this other thing, which is the reasonable answer? It's like it's the
Yeah.
reasonable answer, guys.
Right, right, exactly. So that's yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Now, next is ending violence law against gays. So yeah, I believe there was a clip of Pope Francis talking about gays getting killed or something.
Yes.
Can
Yeah, it
you
was
allow?
a
Okay, could
Spanish.
just give the context?
Yeah, it was a Spanish interview, and I went back and read it, and he was talking about ending violence laws against people who like struggle with homosexuality, because in like some Muslim countries, like you can be someone who's like homosexuality is wrong, and you know I might just struggle with SSA, right, which is a disorder, right? It's like having depression or something, and they'll just kill you. Like they don't care, right?
Yeah.
And that's never been a Catholic teaching. We want those people to repent. We want them to convert. We want them to live good lives in Jesus Christ, right?
Hmm.
And
Amen.
so he was merely reiterating that teaching, which, if you go back, what's so funny is like people who freaked out over it. If you go back to even, I believe it was 2009, under Pope Benedict the 16th, there was a document that came out addressing the UN Declaration of Human Rights, writing about how it was wrong to commit violence against people who struggle with that, right? And the Vatican said we support that it's wrong to commit violence against people, but we are against like the promotion of homosexuality, which this document seems to do. So they were
Right.
nuanced, right? It's like we don't want to just kill random people, but we
Yeah.
also do want to take legal action against like people who are doing things like drag queen story time or gay pride parades,
Hmm.
which that is also a Catholic teaching. So Pope Francis did not repudiate like taking legal action. In fact, actually in that interview, someone posted, he did say, I'm not talking about interest groups. He's like, I'm not talking about interest groups or anything like that. And I have a picture of it on my phone. He's like, I'm not talking about interest groups. I'm not talking about like groups trying to promote it. He's like, I'm just talking about individuals who just happen to be struggling with this, right?
Exactly.
Which that's perfectly consonant with Catholic teaching.
Because like I literally saw so many people. I think I even saw like Sneeko talk about it. It's like that, like I don't this thing didn't say this, but it's like that a lot of people were getting what they were getting out of it. It was just saying like, did Pope Francis just say that being gay is not a sin when he said gay is not a crime? It's like it's like, bruh, come on. Like it's so clear that they grab the whatever the mainstream media is, like, like the clips out of it. They don't grab the full context, right? And then they just go off of that to prove whatever their bias is. It's crazy.
Well, what pisses me off too is why did we spend so much time defending Trump, who is an adulterer, who's had divorces, who supports gay marriage, who supports Israel and all those things, and we spent hours defending him. We would do, change my mind on Donald Trump and stuff like that on college campuses. But then literally the Vicar of Christ, we don't spend 2 seconds doing our research. 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It really pisses me off, frankly.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and look, Donald Trump did a lot of good things. I'm not trying to be a counter signaler, but what I mean is, like, why are we more willing to defend this person who does not live in accord with Catholic teaching, like, at all, but not literally the Vicar of Christ,
Yeah, literally. And it's like, and I think even it's funny you mentioned change my mind, because Steven Crowder himself, he literally called, I think he like made a video on like Pope Francis and communism. Like I think I think Steven Crowder called Pope Francis a freaking communist. Which is
Pope
like
Francis wants me to be Nazbol gang, I'll do it for him.
Nazbol gang.
I'm just kidding. No,
but yeah, no, that's so facts.
Not a communist. He's repudiated communism, but like I always love when these like boomer cons are like, Pope Francis is a communist. I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm Nazbol gang, like, Catholic Nazbol gang, bro, like,
what's the Soviet national anthem? Nah, we're not communists. Catholicism and communism are not compatible. Clearly, antithetical to Catholicism. Anyways, next is the Latin Mass restrictions. A lot of people are having a huge issue with the Pope cracking down on the Latin Mass. What?
Yeah. So I first need to say I completely understand the difficulty. I even share it. I'll say that. I think right now it's tough because these parishes are good, and yes, there are mad trads in some of those parishes and stuff like that. I've encountered some before, but there's a lot of good people, and a lot of good people are being affected. And I would say that what's being done is very imprudent. Now, Pope Francis completely has the right to do it. I must affirm that, and I don't think that he's, I don't think he's evil or anything like that. But I do think that there are other things we should be addressing in the life of the church than a couple mad trads who hang out online. You know what I mean? And so I understand why people are deeply hurt, and I share it myself. But we do have to have a proportionate response and still love the Holy Father in that too.
Exactly.
It can't turn to hate and spitefulness, because the moment you do that, you're outside of the church. I'm not Catholic because of the Latin Mass. I'm Catholic because I believe in the church. And a lot of people also need to get over the hermeneutic of what I call clown mass versus TLM. Like, it's like either I have to go to pizza and Pepsi mass or, a high TLM. And it's like, no, not at all. Like, I mean, a lot of people criticize Catholic apologists because they're like, they don't even attend the Novus Ordo. I do every single Sunday, bro.
Same.
Every single Sunday. And I assist at it, and I'm an altar boy and stuff like that on occasion too. I help serve at Mass, so it's like,
where does Pinesap go to Mass? Where does Pinesap go to Mass?
See my vocation? It's like the Whopper meme. Have you seen that meme, the Whopper song meme, where it like is like someone's like dogs?
No, I haven't seen that.
That one's really funny, dude. I'll have to send it to you. It's just like it like is singing like the song like Whopper, Whopper, Big Mac, Whopper. Franco lives on 837 Denver.
Hey, yo, chill.
And then it just like starts like seeing this guy's address and like IP number and stuff like that. I'm like, bro.
That's great. Nah, chill. All right, you were saying.
Yes. Oh man, what was I saying? Oh yes, but so I understand the hurt that comes from the Latin Mass restrictions, but I don't also think that the Holy Father's doing it because he's evil and he's this evil liberal mastermind trying to, goad people into doing anything wrong. This can be seen by the fact that he wrote to the French Bishops' Conference clearly saying you need to shepherd the Catholics that were affected by these restrictions. He's like, you need to make them feel loved and know that they're a part of the church and stuff like that. And so it's clear that he does have a paternal heart, and he's not looking to, excommunicate Latin Mass people, Latin Mass goers. I think based on what he says, I do think he is trying to deal with the mad trad phenomenon, but I think there could be a better way in which that's done.
And I'm actually going to give
I think it's imprudent,
I'm going to give a hot take on this. Like, and again, I genuinely, like, I agree with, like, everything you said pretty much. Like, it's like, I don't really see much of a huge net positive for putting, like, a ban on the Latin Mass. I think it's beautiful. I think the Latin Mass is very beautiful. I have friends who go to the Latin Mass. I personally have gone to a few. I like my Novus Ordo, so I just go to that one. And it's not a clown mass, of course. It's like, I think a lot of, like, the same arguments that a lot of, like, leftists use to, prop up, like, oh, look at these, like, this one small case of BLM, of, like, police brutality on black people, and they just, like, say that, like, oh, that's how it is for all black people, and, like, how it is for all police brutality. It's like, I feel like that's what they do with the Novus Ordo. Like, they grab, like, a very small minority of Novus Ordos, and then they just say, like, that's how all the Novus Ordo, like, that's how majority of them are. It's like, no, I would, like, you would have to, first off, the stats for that aren't even there, and second off, you would have to be, like, because they're not there, you would have to be, like, going to every single Novus Ordo to, like, really see if it really is a majority. Really, what I've seen is just that people that live in, like, very liberal areas, they get really radicalized because of that, and so they got to the total extreme because all the Novus Ordos in their area, because it's very liberal areas, are just not very good. Because here in my area, it's like you go to a lot of, I can go to, like, any Novus Ordo here, and it's, like, pretty reverent. It's like majority of them are reverent, and I would not doubt that, like, majority of them worldwide are like that. It really, so it's like, it's anecdotal. Like, even if you want to say mine is anecdotal, like, so is yours. Like, you can't give me, like, sure, like, I've heard the stats of, like, oh, well, Latin Mass, actually more people that are more pro life and, like, right wing and are vote conservative are go to Latin Mass. It's like, yeah, but that's, like, you can't. Have you taken stats? It's like what's it called? Correlation does not equal causation. What I've personally seen more, what I've personally seen more is that people that have become very devoted Catholics end up going to the Latin Mass rather than the Latin Mass producing more devoted Catholics. That's what I've personally seen. I haven't really seen, and maybe people can, like, try to contest that, but, like, that's what I've seen. And frankly, it's like when you go to a Latin Mass, or I've seen comments talking about, like, with a person saying, like, I hated the Latin Mass. It's like my parents brought me to that, like, every Sunday. It's like, I hated that. It's like it's not good. So it's like, either way, Novus Ordo or Latin Mass, people are still, like, if they're not raised right, they're not gonna appreciate it either way. It's like you're not Latin Masses have some sort of, like, magical sort of thing that the Novus Ordo doesn't have that can affect somebody. Like, maybe the style might be different, sure, but again, we're talking about small T traditions, like the small T, not the big T. The big T traditions is the sacred traditions. The Latin Mass is not a sacred tradition. It's a mass, which is the sacred tradition, but the style of it, that's a little tradition. That's a man-made tradition. It's not. It's not like It's not something that is not allowed to change. It can definitely be changed because it's a man-made tradition. The Mass itself, the Eucharist, the sacrifice of the Mass, that itself can never change because that is a divine tradition. And a lot of people tend to confuse the two between divine tradition and man-made tradition. And it's like, I like what you said right there. It's like, I'm not Catholic because of the Latin Mass. I'm Catholic because of the Mass, right? I'm Catholic because of Jesus Christ, right? It's like, I got evangelized by a Protestant. It's like, I wouldn't say, like, I know it's not the 1-to-1 ratio, but it's like, it reminds me of, like, as if I would be saying, like, oh, I'm Catholic because this Protestant evangelized me into Christianity. It's like, I'm Catholic because of Jesus Christ. And funny enough, I want to mention one more thing as well. It's, again, I do sympathize with the people that go to the Latin Mass, but at the same time, I cannot, like, just let it slide to the fact that a lot of these people want, when they try to promote the Latin Mass, most of the times they can't help themselves but criticize or throw rocks at the Novus Ordo. It's like, if you can't talk about the thing that you're promoting without having to throw negative criticism towards something else, toward the contrary, it's probably not a very good sign of what you're promoting, honestly, because I'm not saying the landmass is a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's probably not done for the right reasons, right? It's like, if you want to win in anything, and I guess, and you can take some advice, I'm technically helping you out in this. If you want to win in anything, you want to talk more about why it's a good thing rather than why the other side's just bad. It's not, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't use it, especially if you mischaracterize it, which I've seen a lot of people mischaracterize the Novus Ordo, by using liturgical abuses as if that's what the Novus Ordo is. It's like, no, that's a liturgical abuse. And that happens in the landmass too. That there's been reports of people doing the liturgical abuses in the landmass. So it's like, you can't, like, and you can't really you can't really try to use those anecdotes to be like, oh, that's how the Novus Ordo is. But there's more stuff that I can touch on it, but this is not about the landmass and Novus Ordo. This is about Pope Francis, and we're defending Papa. So I'll leave it at that, unless you want to add anything else. Pinesap?
I did want to kind of add on to that a little bit. And I think what you said, I actually really agreed with. I really do get pissed off when people have to denigrate the Novus Ordo in order to support the Latin Mass. It's like, guys, we got two great things. Like, there's no reason to pit them against each other, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's heinous, frankly, you know? I mean, I found spiritual nourishment in both forms of the Roman Rite. I didn't find, you know, and I've been equally against, like, you know, because I know people are going to be like, oh, it's just, you know, you're just defending the Novus Ordo all the time. Look, I'm against people who denigrate the Latin Mass too.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
think we should be denigrating the church's liturgy at all, you know?
Yeah.
And not only that, but, and Franco, I should send you this article, but liturgical abuse was still going on prior to Vatican II. You know, Monsignor Charles Pope, who I think actually in America was celebrating the Indult Mass even before Summorum Pontificum, which Indult, for those who don't know, was Pope St. John Paul II in 1984 allowed some parishes to celebrate the traditional Latin Mass, but it was kind of like a special thing. You know, you didn't really have like the Fraternity St. Peter yet and stuff like that. It was just like, hey, this parish can celebrate the traditional Latin Mass, right? And I think Monsignor Charles Pope was one of them. And he wrote about being trained under priests who celebrated the Mass like in the 50s. And he said how, like, there were a ton of bad things that would go on. There were a ton of bad things. He's like, they would run through the Latin, you know, daily masses that were supposed to be 40 minutes, daily low masses were cut down to 20. You know, people, there was this idea, like, when we talk about active participation, there would be people who would come into Mass, not know what was going on at the altar, maybe kind of do like their private prayers or just sit and wait, receive the Eucharist, and then go home, right? And that was their Catholic life. And that's actually what inspired the fathers of Vatican II to say, hey, we got to get people actively participating in the sacrifice at the altar, because we need them to know that what's going on is not just, I wait for the Eucharist, but I am praying the church's prayer. I am loving the church, and I'm loving Jesus up at the altar.
You're telling me that Bugnini wasn't actually the reason why this stuff got instituted? What?
Ball Bugnini.
I think you need to watch Mass of the Ages. I think you need to watch. I think you need to read Infiltration, Pinesap. I think you need to read Infiltration.
Yeah, dude. I need to definitely read a book that repeats the lies from 1970s French trad magazines.
You actually read that book, didn't you?
So I didn't read it. What I did is, when I was thinking, actually, I think it was around the time I was thinking about picking it up. Reason and Theology did a 2-part series covering the book's scholarship.
Okay.
And
because how do you know that it has those lies in it?
Because they would go through and they would talk about the various contents in each chapter, such as, like, you know, things like, I'm trying to remember, the permanent instruction for the Alta Vendita. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So that's a document that's real, actually. It was formed by a group called the Carbonari in I believe the 1840s or 1830s. They were a Freemason lodge in Italy. I believe in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. And they were super anti-Catholic, right? And wrote this document about how they wanted to infiltrate the church. 2 years later, they, like, disbanded and weren't a lodge anymore, right? And went their separate ways. But Taylor Marshall used that document to try and create this narrative of history, like, oh, this Alta Vendita connects to this person and that person, and then it's like, okay, but it's like the Wendy's ad from the 80s. Where's the beef, right?
Yeah.
Where is the connection in that? And there was none. He would just put it in sequential order and be like, oh, Alta Vendita connects to Bunini, which connects to this, which connects to that, and it wasn't really logical. Likewise, even with Freemasonry, like Freemasons, and this might be hard to believe, but Freemasons don't necessarily all think alike. Like they do have sects and groups within Freemasonry that are separate from each other. In fact, the Italian Freemasons were divided. Some supported like democracy, some supported communism.
Wow! Who would have thought that a group of people that believe in a subjective ideology would have different beliefs? Wow!
Yeah. I don't know what to say. And again, it's not like they haven't done any evil. They definitely have.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, you can read or you can watch actually a really good documentary on them from Church Militant. But like the whole point is, and I could go in the book for hours, but like that coupled with like, I mean, Dr. Taylor Marshall commits blasphemy in the book. So like one of the things that he says is he repeats, there was this like, I think this left-wing journalist in Italy who said that St. Paul VI was a homosexual. And St. Paul VI had to like address this, and he was like, no, this is a baseless claim and stuff like that. And Taylor Marshall just reprints that. I was like, oh yeah, here you go. St. Paul VI is a homosexual. Okay, here you go. And it's like, dude, like, you're reprinting like I believe a left-wing yellow page journalist's lies about the Roman pontiff. Like, what the hell, dude?
Is that actually like you're sure that's in the book?
Yeah, it is.
Dang.
And dude, that's like the tip of the iceberg. I mean, it's like, half his stuff is just, again, I made the joke about the French trad magazines, but it literally is like half these things came from French magazines in the 1970s that would create these baseless, like, I heard a guy say from a guy who said from a guy this thing, and it was like a game of telephone. It would just get spread around and everyone would be like, oh, that's the case. But when you actually go and try to like locate like the source quotes and stuff like that, you find it like stops and ends at that magazine. Like there's no document, there's no quote from any like reputable source or anything like that. It's just it's again yellow page journalism essentially.
Man, that's yeah. No, I learned about yellow page journalism in elementary school. Look at that. Okay,
Yeah.
man, we should do a live stream all about that sort of stuff, just to critique that and make sure all that's down flat. But let's get back to Papa. That was good stuff. That was good stuff. Okay, so we just covered Latin Mass restrictions. Did you have any notes there that you wanted to touch on?
I think we covered it honestly. Oh,
Cool.
Just to say two things before we go. Just to say three things that people might want to know, if you're okay with that, Franco.
Go ahead.
So, a lot of people know about the Ottavianian intervention, and Cardinal Ottaviani, I believe he signed on to it, but it was some concerns about the Novus Ordo Missae. Well, what a lot of people do not know, and you can read about this in the book The Pope, the Council, and the Mass by Dr. James Locutus and Kenneth D. Whitehead, is that Cardinal Ottaviani talked with one of, I believe, the liturgists at the Second Vatican Council. He was there, but like someone who helped kind of like draft Sacrosanctum Concilium and was on, I believe, the concilium that made the Novus Ordo Missae. And he talked with Cardinal Ottaviani, and Cardinal Ottaviani wrote a letter in 1973 saying, no one can be scandalized by the Missal, and the Missal is holy and delivered by God, and the Church has given us a good liturgy. And for the rest of his life, he lived for, I think, till 1979, never complained about the Novus Ordo, and he wasn't silenced or anything like that. And St. John Paul II even gave his funeral oration. So it's clear that, Cardinal Ottaviani believed the new Mass was great. So that's one thing. Father Van Noort, in I think one of his dogmatic theology books, talks about how the church can't give us a deficient liturgy. So if you believe that the church could give us a sacramentally deficient liturgy, that's a schismatic viewpoint. You can't hold that as a Catholic. Like, you're anathematized. if you believe that.
That's
And
another thing
Father
that
Van Noort was prior to Vatican II, by the way.
that's another thing that I want to touch on actually, real quick. That's actually another Pope Francis. I think that like one thing that we want to debunk here is actually that like I saw a video where this guy was saying the schism of Pope Francis, and what he was doing, what he was essentially like he was saying like pretty much warning that if Pope Francis keeps on putting down, like if he bans the Latin Mass altogether or something, or keeps on putting harsher restrictions on the Latin Mass, then that's going to cause many Catholics to get in schism. So what he essentially, as you can tell right now, that's not Pope Francis's fault. If a Catholic wants to go into schism with the church, that's on that Catholic. It's like, what kind of victim mentality is that? That's like just total blame it on the other person. It's like, if somebody can't make you go into schism with the Catholic Church, that means that you just didn't like that action, and then you're like, that's as if I was like, oh yeah, there's no female priests, the discipline that there can't be female priests, there shouldn't be female priests. Yeah, I don't like that, so I'm gonna go into schism with the Catholic Church. It's like, you know, or the teaching on celibacy with the priests when they got like more, I think they got more widespread with that teaching, with that discipline. It's like, yeah, you know, you have to be celibate if you're a priest. It's like, and I just had to schism myself with that. It's like I'm sure there were many Catholics that got like pretty pissed off, or like got kind of displeased with that when they first heard about that, or that life begins at conception. It's like, you can't, just because you don't like something that the Pope does, even if it's not ex cathedra, that doesn't mean that it's like, okay, now I'm gonna go into schism. It's like, and then blame it on the Pope? What kind of freaking, that's literally such a victim, like, it reminds me of the freaking Marxists. It literally reminds me of the Marxist victim mentality. It's like, I don't understand how those people don't see it. I don't understand. It's just, and it's funny because they're literally like, they say they're traditional, so that means that like they literally try to be, you know, they're very against homosexual practice. They're very, you know, they're trying to stick to the book of what the Catholic Church teaches, but they don't stick to the book on that aspect. So it's like, how are you going to be claimed to be a traditionalist if you can't even be traditional on that aspect? I don't understand.
Absolutely. Papal obedience is like the one thing that the so-called, like, because you know, I'm like, you and I are Catholic, Franco. Of course we're traditional. If you're not traditional, you're not Catholic, like,
Yeah.
bluntly put. You have to abide by the teaching of the apostles. If you don't, you're not Catholic and you separate yourself from the church, right? But these so-called traditionalists, I mean, you know, we prayed the prayer before this of the Chair of St. Peter, and one of the things, you know, I asked for the intercession of the Fathers of Vatican I. The Fathers of Vatican I were about as traditional as you could get, and they would never conceive about disobeying the Pope. Never. That
They have,
never crossed their mind.
it feels as if they have, some people have more of an allegiance to the man-made traditions than they do with sacred traditions, if that makes sense.
Well, they have what I would call a private interpretation of tradition, right?
Oh,
where
yeah.
it's similar to how someone would privately interpret scripture, where they're like, I think this, and the church is the one who's wrong. So I need to break off from the church. The church, as Dr. E. Michael Jones says, the church has cancer. You know, these people think the church has cancer and I need to break off. Well, that's not a Catholic attitude. That's the attitude of the Donatists, the Nestorians,
Lutherans.
the Jansenists, the Lutherans,
Protestantism, literally
Protestantism. I mean, the old, you know, this group of people really reminds me, and I say this a lot, but they remind me of the old Catholics. The old Catholics were a group of once Catholics who broke off after the First Vatican Council because their protege, Dollinger, and I believe Dr. Edward Schultz, said, no, papal infallibility is an invention and that's not traditional. So they privately interpreted to say, oh, it's not a tradition of the church, so I'm going to break off and start my own thing. And as Pope Francis said, they did that and now they ordain women, which kind of crazy, huh? Why would Pope Francis criticize them for breaking off and now ordaining women? It's almost like he doesn't support women's ordination or something.
Based. But Papa is based. Like, some people like to say like he's the most liberal pope we have to date, but it's like, I don't know, man, between him and like that one pope that like hosted orgies, I would take Pope Francis. I'm not gonna lie. I would, if I had to choose between one or the other, you know. He has a lot of based moments. I'm not gonna lie. It's there's a lot of moments where I'm like, freaking Pope right there. There's a lot of they don't get the light shined on because the mainstream media doesn't want those moments to be seen, and the rad trash are too busy throwing shade at him. So it's like, it's really not many people are willing to talk about his dubs, I would say. But anyways, let's move on. Ah, yes, the Pontifical Academy for Life.
Yes.
So for those that don't know, I know that I can cover this part. So
yeah, go ahead.
For those that don't know, the Pope appointed or nominated, I think he appointed, the Pope appointed a pro-abortion feminist to the Pontifical Academy for Life. So a lot of people had an issue with that. And the way I see it, it's like, I would argue that was arguably a scandalous action of his.
Yes.
But scandal is not heresy.
Yes.
I can be scandalous and still not commit heresy. Like, again, the Pope that committed orgies, that's it. He's fornicating. That's like pretty freaking grave, but that's still not heresy, because heresy by definition means that you are rejecting an established teaching of the Catholic Church. Or would you want to clarify more on that? Pinesap.
Heresy is best conceived as an obstinate denial of a dogma of the faith.
Yes, that.
Now, you can also not necessarily be in if we're using formal definitions, heresy, but be in error. Like, I'll just say, like, Father James Martin is in error. The reason I say he's not in heresy is because, like, him being in heresy would be like if he had like a Christological error. So if he said like Jesus has one will or something. But he is in error because he does seem to obstinately deny the church's teaching on homosexuality.
Uh-huh. Got it.
So that would be a good example.
Okay. So wait, repeat to me what the definition of heresy like what's the difference between heresy and error?
Error would be a denial of doctrine. Heresy would be a denial of a dogma.
Oh, okay,
yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha. Cool. Got it. Okay.
And people kind of use the term colloquially, like, generally if you're in error, people are going to say you're in heresy and stuff like that. And the fathers would kind of use it the same way too, So yeah. It's I'm using the formal definition, but if you say like someone who promotes like pro-gay stuff is a heretic, it's like, yeah, I mean they're in error, like.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, scandal does not constitute heresy. And I know a lot of people want to be like, well, how could your Pope, your leader of the church, the representative of Christ, how could he have done that? It's like what, like, is he not supposed to sin at all? Like, aren't you guys the ones that constantly remind us Catholics that the Pope is only human? It's like, who are you to judge who are you to judge that how gravely a leader should be able to sin before he is deemed not a leader? The church already established it. He can't commit heresy. He has to be, that's his papal infallibility. That's part of it, at least. So it's like, why, like, what authority do you have to say that, oh, if he commits a grave sin, like scandalizing, like appointing a pro-abortion feminist to the Pontifical Academy for Life, that's a scandalous action. It's like, who are you to say that because he did that, that means that he should not have authority to teach? Like, what authority do you have to say that? It's like, that's just your own interpretation. It's like, that's your own standards, your own made-up standards. It doesn't come from any objective place but your own made-up standards.
And the thing with it is that, so yes, that action was scandalous. And I have contextualized it a little bit, saying like the commission that she's on has nothing to do with abortion. It's a technology, committee or whatever, covering more like technologies for human life. She still should not be anywhere near the Pontifical Academy of Life. You know what I mean? Like, she should be burned at the stake. Like, sorry to Fed Bose, but like, chill. Like not literally. Let's pray for conversion, but like, that's someone who should not be anywhere close to a Catholic church, right? And so it's understood that there's no divine assistance in actions like that. The Pope can do something scandalous,
And
right?
Pinesap, you did
And
mean that when you said burn at the stake, you did mean like burn calories at the stake, right? Like when she's
yeah,
like
that's what I'm
working
saying. It's
out,
like
like to like
she's eating steak to cut down on body fat. She's carnivore pilled. That's what I meant.
yeah. That's what so true, so true, so true. That's what you mean. Yeah, yeah,
But needless to say, you know, her appointment was a travesty, and
yeah.
some of the other things going on with the Pontifical Academy for Life, like I can't remember the cardinal who is kind of controlling things right now, who's at the head of it. He's not a good cardinal, bluntly put. There was some like Anglican who is a part of it too, or who is a part of it right now, who's also not good. So there is a lot of goofiness going on there, and we need to just be honest about that. But
Yeah.
needless to say, that's not the criteria for what constitutes heresy or error, right? That's just a scandalous action. There will be no change of teachings on, Humanae Vitae or anything like that. It can't happen,
Right.
right? And the other thing is too, just to clarify another point, Franco, the Pope can be a heretic, but he can't formally bind the church to error. And let me
Oh
explain
shoot!
that.
Oh wait, right. In private matters, he can be a heretic, right?
Yes. So and he can err in a non-infallible way. In the sense of like, so the case I'll give is Pope Honorius. So Pope Honorius was anathematized by Constantinople III, the Third Council of Constantinople, because of a letter that he wrote to Patriarch Sergius, which was ambiguous about, I believe, the wills of Christ. It was either I believe it was the wills or the natures. I'm kind of forgetting off the top of my head. I believe it was the wills and maybe the natures as well. But he was kind of ambiguous with his language. A lot of people debated whether he actually taught heresy. I'm kind of the opinion that in his letters he didn't really say anything heretical. He was just ambiguous. But needless to say, the church did anathematize him. And Pope Saint Leo II codified that anathema again. Now, the reason that is not a problem for the Catholic position of papal infallibility, and never has been, because the Council Fathers literally discussed his case, was because of the fact that he didn't intend to bind the church to anything in his action. It was just a letter it was certainly more public than being a private letter, but it wasn't really even an exercise of his magisterium, or if it was, nothing that was extraordinary, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. This is actually crazy, because right now we're arguing that if Pope Francis has never committed heresy, even in private matters, he's more base than I thought. Then what the frick? So it's like, Papa for the win.
It goes to show, right? And like, I mean, the thing about it is like, it literally is miraculous if you look at the history of the church. I mean, like, even like cases that were really, really, really rocky, right? Like Honorius or Pope John the 22nd, who denied the beatific vision. Like, the fact that the Holy Spirit literally preserved them from binding their error to the church, it is further proof of the Catholic claim. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So it's just like, it's incredible. It's such a beautiful thing,
Yeah. No, facts. Literally the case. Literally the case. Many such cases too. Many such cases.
Many such cases.
That's cool. I didn't know that. Because whenever I looked into like the issue of heresy, I always kind of had like it wasn't such a clear answer to me. But you put it in a pretty understandable position. That's why I was like, he can't technically commit heresy, but it's like, but I knew about the in private matters he technically can. But yeah, there you go. Okay, cool.
And sometimes something's not necessarily. You want a further clarification?
Go ahead.
Sometimes something isn't even necessarily heresy. Sometimes it could just be what's called an intellectual error. So an intellectual error is when someone has their will is not engaged to commit heresy, and they might just get something theologically wrong, right? So that happened, like that's happened to me a ton. That's probably happened to you a ton, where you say
Yeah.
something and it's not theologically precise or sound, but you didn't intend to commit a heresy, right?
Right,
And
right.
it's exactly like the church's teaching on mortal sin. It's like, well, something's only mortal if I have full knowledge, full consent, and grave matter, right?
Yeah. Oh shoot. Yo, I'm learning so much today. This is awesome. I hope you guys are learning a lot too. Listen, I'm always down to be on the student mentality. I'm always down to learn more and more. I acknowledge that I don't know shit. Oh my god, I don't know crap. I don't know shoot. I know some things, but then again, yeah, as you can see, no man is an island. I know a good amount of things, but of course, everybody has their arenas. In Pinesap, very lucky to have him as a friend because that guy is freaking. You guys can see Pine Stuff right here. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of good stuff that we're learning today, folks. So make sure to write some notes down or take them down in your head if you have telegraphic memory. Yeah. Anyways, cool. Thanks, Pine Stuff. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Next is the appointments of certain bishops. We can get into specifics after this bit. Right now, I just want to say this real quick. I want to talk about the German bishops.
Yes, yes. So the German bishops, the thing is that Pope Francis has spoken out against their actions. I mean, he wrote them a 19-page letter talking about, like, that they have to remain with the Spirit of Christ and they can't evangelize by being worldly and capitulating to the world. When there was the visitation of the German bishops to the Vatican, he had Cardinal I believe it's Cardinal Ladaria and Cardinal Mark Aulet basically rip him a new one, right? I mean, they just went into all the errors. Cardinal Mark Aulet and Cardinal Ladaria were talking about, like, homosexuality is a sin, women can't be ordained, like all the base Catholic teaching, and they were not happy. And of course, Bishop Batzing gave some like nothing burger answer to all of it. He was like, "We're just going to strive to be Catholic in a different way," and stuff like that. And based on their final vote, I would say that they are already materially in schism. And I've even told people living in Germany, if you know of a church that is like in communion with the synodal way and not actively resisting their errors, you shouldn't attend that church at all.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Like literally, it's like Aryan crisis levels of bad.
Dang.
And so I think what Pope Francis has tried to do with it is he's tried to kind of like talk it out with them and try to prevent schism and stuff like that, which it wouldn't be the first time that that's happened. Like, Pope Pius IX, Blessed Pius IX, tried to do the same thing with the old Catholics back around Vatican I. But there's some point where someone's heart is set on schism, and you have to cut the shaft from the wheat, right? You have to separate the wheat from the shaft, and you need to just throw the shaft in the fire and burn it, right?
Man, but what happens like to all the Catholics then that are in that area? Like, where are they gonna go to mass if that happens?
So the Vatican, what they could do is they could send priests from other countries or take the priests that are faithful to the church and, separate them out from, the heretical bishops and stuff like that. And then just, make those parishes, the Catholic parishes of Germany. And then what would also happen is they could send foreign priests to come administer the sacraments to the faithful German Catholics.
Deutschland.
It's like there's a heresy. I keep talking about the old Catholics. They were German too. And then, the Protestants, it's like Germany's like always got like some heresy or schism going on. I don't know what's in the water in that country.
We have like I've talked to Carson about this. I'm like I would be so down if like we and the boys we could just like do some sort of like mission trip to Germany for a whole year and try to evangelize as much as we can. Into Catholicism, like I would love to like into like based stuff. I would love to try to do that for but 1 year, just for 1 year, where like it's like you stay in Germany for 1 year and then you like try to make as many events as possible, be super charismatic, sociable, talk to the Germans, at least the ones that speak English. But yeah, no, I was thinking about it because it's like I feel like Germany is such a like it's very liberal. It's very, very like leftist leaning, liberal and leftist leaning both. and it's like I don't know why, but whenever I see that, I'm just like I want them to come to the Catholic Church, come to the truth.
Yeah.
Oh, it's that like I guess is that sort of the chase of what's hard to get, I guess.
Well, and former communists and leftists make really good Catholics actually, because like they've peered into the void and they've gone the other direction. So they're like the best allies we can have against the errors of the modern world.
Oh yeah, for the same reason that like converts are like some of the best like apologetics, I believe, because I know like I've heard that from Gabriel, Catacomb Diaries. He was telling me like yeah like converts like I think he said something like along the lines of like converts make the best make the best like apologetics for apologetics. And I know you're a convert because I know you used to be Anglican, um, correct? Or
Yeah.
were you, yeah yeah.
Yes,
You're,
I well, and I think it'd be more precise to say I used to be Episcopalian, but I just called myself Anglican because Episcopalians are so gay, man. Like I was like, I didn't want to have anything to do with them.
Gotcha. So you were addicted to fish. Got it. Okay.
That's
Anyways,
real.
so so next appointments of certain bishops.
Yeah, so in regards to that, like, there's kind of a couple people that Pope Francis has appointed or like made cardinals that, aren't really great, like Cardinal McElroy or Cardinal Supich, or to give some examples. What I would say is again, it's a scandalous action, but it's not anything that's heretical, you know. And there, other examples in history of this would be like, um, like popes appointing bishops because, or in this case, appointing cardinals because of like family connections, nepotism, money involved, simony, that sort of thing. And that's happened a lot in church history, you know. But what's amazing is like even when that has happened, like everything's always ended up fine. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. It's like it hasn't canceled out the body of the church despite it being not a great thing, right?
Yeah.
Um,
It's almost like the gates of hell just can't prevail against the church.
I know, dude.
Wow.
It's crazy. Like I don't know how to put it. You know.
It's almost like that was prophesized or something. I don't know.
Dude, it's crazy. I mean, you're speaking like Goofy Juice right now. You know.
Any other points on the appointments of certain bishops that you want to mention?
I think that's kind of the main thing.
Okay.
Like I said, I would just say, you know, Pope can make bad appointments, right? Like the Pope can
Yeah.
make like bad like appointments of bad bishops, and not every single appointment's been bad either. He's appointed some bishops that are good and stuff like that. I think the bad sticks out a lot more though because it's like you're a lot more willing to see a car crash than a sunny day. You know what I mean?
That's
Like
true. Yeah.
so I think that's what I would say about that. If you have another issue that you want to cover next, we can do that. But there is something, and this is probably one of the most controversial things that I wanted to cover because I know it probably will come up. But if you got something else to cover,
Well, that's pretty much it, except for Pachamama, Pac-Man Mama. We'll mention that. We'll talk about Pac-Man Mama, Pachamama after this.
It's like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Zooey Mama.
Pac-Man Mama.
I used to make really messed up jokes where I was like, it's like, yeah, like I would preface it like the jokes like when you do this, I was like, when you commit a terrorist attack, Zooey Mama.
Yo, what the frick? Yo, hey, yo. All right, what was the one topic you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I actually will mention too. The other one is we talked about the Abu Dhabi document, but I also will talk about the Abu Dhabi house too, just to clarify stuff on that. So personally, for me, I think one of the kind of not greatest things that's happened was Pope Francis writing a letter to Father James Martin and Sister Janine Gramick. For those who don't know, Father James Martin is a priest, a Jesuit priest who basically openly dissents on the church's teaching on homosexuality. And Pope Francis wrote him a letter. Now, I've read the letter. He doesn't affirm anything about homosexuality not being a sin or anything like that. Basically, what he says in the letter is he's like, "Thank you for creating a culture of encounter and stuff like that." And I've had this like thesis, or this theory that I think that Pope Francis, because the thing that Father James Martin will do is Father James Martin is very slippery, right? So he
Yeah.
doesn't really openly say, "No, I do not agree with the church." He kind of like is like, because like in America Magazine, for instance, there was an article I believe from like 2018 where he's like, "Yes, I assent to the Catechism. Yes, I assent to this CDF document on homosexuality and stuff like that." And so I personally think that's what's being presented to Papa. I
Mm.
think that's what's being presented to Papa, and so he's thinking that Father James Martin is someone like Father John Hardin, who started, or sorry, not Father John Hardin, Father John Harvey, who started the Courage Apostolate. Courage, for those who don't know, is an apostolate that does help people who struggle with SSA live out Jesus Christ in their lives, right? So it
Mm.
helps people get counseling, pray, and work through their problems and struggles with same-sex attraction, so to not live a homosexual lifestyle and live a Catholic lifestyle. And
Based.
my theory is that, oh, go ahead.
No, I said based.
Yeah, it's super based. I'm a huge proponent of the Courage program. It's very beautiful. And Father John Harvey was a beautiful writer too. I've read quite a bit of his writings. He really was the epitome of truth and charity, like being like this, you know, like as Saint Edith Stein says, there is no where there is no charity, there is no truth, and where there is no truth, there is no charity. And I think he best was an exemplar of that. So I think that for Pope Francis, that's what he thinks Father James Martin is. For Sister Janine Gramick, I think it's the same thing. Sister Janine Gramick is also awful. She is like the original Father James Martin. I mean, she was getting like rebuked back in the day by the CDF in the 80s and 90s for promoting the her organization is called Dignity USA, and it openly dissents on church teaching in regards to homosexuality.
Mm.
And I don't know. I mean, I think the letter was just like him trying to be like, I appreciate you trying to have these people live a good life. It was very scandalous, though. It just never should have happened.
Yeah.
Again, he didn't commit any error. He didn't affirm that homosexuality is not a sin or anything like that. In fact, to provide counterexamples showing that he doesn't, I do have actually a quote from Pope Francis where he laments how the media has misconstrued his words, especially on the topic of homosexuality. And first, he talks about when like he actually recommended homosexuals get psychological treatment and help and therapy, first of all. So he like starts with saying that, and then he didn't like how the media like made him out to be like some monster or whatever. But then the next thing he says is, in one address he said, "Hey, if you have a struggle, if you have a kid who struggles with this in your family, don't like cast him out of the house.
Don't disown him.
Yeah, don't disown him, right? Don't don't cast him out into the cold and be like, well, screw you, stuff like that. I mean, that's how those kids get into that lifestyle even worse.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Hold on, my camera died.
oh, okay. I was like, I thought you like fully
Dude,
disconnected.
it froze at such a bad moment too. I looked like I had like some sort of disease or just like some sort of. Hold on. See, look, this is what I look like.
Let's see here. It's got the loading bar and everything.
Now look at my face, bro.
Am I doing a good face?
Yeah, you're doing a good face. Oh, it looks so weird. All right. Hold on. Let me see if I can plug in the camera.
No, that's okay, man. Take your time.
No, you're fine. You can keep going. You can keep going.
Oh yeah, but what I was going to say is that he says that in the first part of the interview. Then in the next part, as we've just been talking about, now you're over my face. Hey, no.
Oh shoot! It's already there. Shoot. Hold on.
Now you're right next to me.
Hold on. Okay, sorry
You
to
got it.
interrupt. Fine, so I'm
No,
sorry.
you got it.
Hold on. Let me just make sure I.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah,
We're like
perfect.
the same size now. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're the same height now.
But in the second part of his quote, he talks about how, like, again, like, don't disown your child for struggling with that. Like, you need
Yeah.
to love them and help them not commit that sin. Because if you cast your child out, like, I've said this to people who are like, well, I would disown my kid. Okay, is that going to make him magically, not want to do that anymore? No.
Yeah.
No, every single like unrepentant homosexual I've ever met talked about how their parents like did not get them like therapy or something like that. They just basically said either, "Oh, I accept it and that's a good lifestyle," or, "Well, see you later," right? It
Yeah.
doesn't work, right? So, you should love your kid and help them not commit that sin. That's the proper approach. But then when he says that, he says at the very end, he said, quote, "In other words, they took a small word to nullify the context," right? And he said, what I said was they have a right to a family, meaning they shouldn't be cast out. When he said they have a right to a family, what he was frustrated about was the media was trying to spin it like he was saying, oh, they have a right to get married and have children and stuff like that. No, 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 no. He wasn't talking about that. He was talking about you have a perfectly normal family who has a child who struggles with SSA, right? And he's like frustrated that they took his words out of context in there. And he says, there what I said was they have a right to a family. And that does not mean approving homosexual acts, not in the least. So like clearly he's against homosexuality. He's not for it, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
the fact that also he signed the document saying the church, God cannot bless sin. The church cannot bless sin. The CDF's document on the gay union blessings going on in Germany. It's like clearly he is not promoting homosexuality. In fact, even in his own private writings, he had this book that was like a dialogue with a rabbi that lived in Argentina. It was them kind of like talking about like theological, philosophical topics and stuff like that. And in there, he talked about, again, like how homosexuality is wrong and it's a sin. And I think he even said, like, it doesn't exist in human anthropology, which is true, right? It does not exist in human anthropology. Like, when people would do homosexual acts in the past, it was just seen as perversion. That was it. Like, there's no concept of someone being a homosexual, right?
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah. Man, that's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
I'm kind of like taking it all in right now. That's why I'm kind of quiet.
No, dude, it's okay, and I'm glad, because it's like we got to speak the truth about this stuff, and half my, half what I've been saying or doing has been just trying to like deprogram Catholics on the internet of this narrative that they've been sold,
Yeah,
I mean,
facts.
that's the whole reason I started doing what I was doing, because I saw a ton of people getting scandalized and then like leaving the church or holding like theological errors, and it was like it was breaking my heart because I was in their position,
Yeah, no, I feel that. Yeah, no, I've heard you talk about that before. So shall we get to Pac-Man Mama, Patchum?
We will do that. Let's cover Abu Dhabi, the Abu Dhabi houses, just real quick.
Go ahead,
just
go ahead.
Very, very quick. Basically, the Abu Dhabi house, no, it's not promoting syncretism for anyone who's concerned. The reason why there's the Abu Dhabi houses is it's trying to promote peace in the Middle East because that's a very warlike region. So it was kind of like, hey, if we build like a church next to a synagogue, next to a mosque, it's kind of like a show of peace. It's like a show of goodwill, right? But there's no affirmation that like, Judaism or Islam are real or anything like that. Now, the architecture is kind of ugly and stuff like that. I fully agree with that. And I think the project's kind of, but again, no affirmation error. So that's it.
Gotcha. Okay,
Now,
cool.
Pac-Man Mama.
All right, Pac-Man Mama time. Patchum Mama, Pac-Man Mama.
Pope Francis committed adultery in the Vatican Gardens, bro. That's the face I'd be making when y'all goofy nibbas be telling me about idolatry in the Vatican Gardens.
I'd be like, bruh.
I'd be like, bruh.
I'd be like, bruh.
A Telegram sticker of you just like going like.
I'd be like, bruh.
Yeah.
Look at this guy's jawline.
Damn, bro, that guy cut.
We both got the same jawline. Look.
Bro, have you been mewing? You've been mewing for real, bro.
I don't mew actually.
Oh, you don't?
What's
Dang.
mewing again?
Mewing is that thing where you breathe through your nose rather than through your mouth, because like breathing through your mouth like collapses your chin. And
I,
then, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
And then also it's like pressing your tongue on like the roof of your mouth to like bring your jaw up, kind of.
I actually have like for the majority of my life I haven't done that, which is why I'm pissed off because I'm like, yo, I probably could have had a better jawline if I had been doing that for most of my life.
Oh, you can improve it like right now, actually.
That's why I'm trying to mew recently now. I've been trying to like breathe through my nose more because I'm a little bit of a mouth breather. I'm not gonna lie. I've been trying to fix that up. I'm like, it's not good. It's not good. Because I know one of my buddies like, dude, like you have to be through your nose like for the health reasons too. I'm like, oh shoot, so yeah, I
That's
know.
real. Because you don't want to be like one of those guys like Carl Weezer who's like, go ahead, Franco. I'm listening.
No, I gotcha, I gotcha. All right. Is that all you wanted to mention for the Abu Dhabi stuff?
Yeah, that's it.
Cool, cool. All right. You know what time it is for?
It is time for Pac-Man Mama.
It's so true. Pac-Man Mama. I know the comment. I want to read the comments real quick. The live chat. I know a lot of people. I'm sure people have been waiting for Pac-Man Mama to come up this whole time.
They're gritting at the teeth. They're like angry at the screen. They're like,
Make Germany great again. That's funny. So true. So true, King. So true. All right. Let's go. Let's start it. All right, man. Pac-Man Mama. So what happened at Pac-Man Mama? Pachamama.
So basically, to give some context, so it was the Amazon Synod, and they were talking about a lot of issues, particularly affecting the Amazonian Catholics, because they're in a special region where there's a lot of particular issues to their Catholic community. That kind of affects their life of the church and what have you. And so the Synod was to address that, right?
Right.
And some Amazonian Catholics, came to the Vatican Gardens and they were venerating this statue. That was kind of a little weird art, I'll admit, like the art was not that tasteful or whatever, but they were venerating it as Our Lady of the Amazon, right? And even though there were some people who made ambiguous statements about the statue, when you watch the video, the woman who walks up to Pope Francis, who, by the way, she's not a shaman. She is a tribal leader in the Amazon, but she's not a shaman or anything like that. She literally goes up to him, makes the sign of the cross because she's Catholic, and then presents the statue to him and says in Spanish, Our Lady of the Amazon. And he blesses the statue. And that was it. So it literally was just all the whole Pachamama thing was it was a depiction of Our Lady that was not very well familiar with, Catholics in the West and stuff like that. And, looked kind of odd and stuff like that. And, none of the events were very well explained. So a ton of Catholics were just deriving their own, conclusions from what they were just seeing on their TV screen. But when put in the, when all was said and done, all it was Amazonian Catholics with their particular expression of Catholicism. Could it have been done in probably a better way and explained a lot more? Yes, absolutely. But needless to say, there was no idolatry. And if you want to really watch a really great deep dive,
Wait. You mean idolatry? You mean idolatry?
Idolatry. I pronounce some weird words a little weird sometimes. Like rather than saying library, I used to say library.
You said idolatry. I'm like, adultery?
Yeah. I have a weird vocabulary sometimes. Sometimes I hit words on the money, and then other words I like. The mouth sounds kind of odd for me, but
You're fine.
yeah. Needless to say, though, there was no idolatry going on in the Vatican Gardens that day. And so, as I was going to say, a really good video to watch is the Father Deacon. I don't think Draconi. I think it's other father deacon. He's an Eastern Catholic deacon, and Michael Lofton covering the event in depth. They cover every aspect of it. They explain every aspect, and they show how no, there was no idolatry, although or idolatry, but they could have explained the event a lot better, and it just could have been organized better. And that's it, you know?
Gotcha. Cool. Oh my gosh. Aren't you guys just at peace knowing that there was no heresy said? Oh wait, I was already at peace this the whole time because I had faith that he didn't. Even though I had the confirmation of the even in private matters they can still commit heresy. Even then I was like that confident that he just did not commit any heresy at all. So to our knowledge, he hasn't said any heresy even in private matters. To our knowledge.
No. No,
Yeah.
and again, for a pope to be judged a heretic, it has to be the entire church in a solemnly convoked ecumenical council with the successor of Saint Peter judging that pontiff, right? Like what happened at Constantinople III. And I believe that's John of St. Thomas that says that. That's the only way that a pope could be judged, because as Catholics, we actually believe that the first see can be judged by no one. So no human person can judge the Roman See except God. But in that ecumenical council with the successor of St. Peter, it would be God judging that pontiff.
Oh, okay. That's good. All right. Now, are we all wrapped up with Pac-Man Mama?
I think we're all wrapped up, honestly.
All right, cool. So if you guys have any more questions regarding Zooey Mama, just replay the video, okay? Anyways, let's read the top comments of the video just to make sure we got everything. So, top comment says, textbook example. In 2018, Pope Francis revised the supposed infallible church dogma by changing the church's stance on the death penalty. His explicit words. Today, however, there is an increasing awareness that the dignity of the... Oh, you're back.
Oh, okay, we're back now. I was making faces and then it like disconnected and
I was like,
yeah, listening to that comment, I was like, oh, I'm getting cancer.
hold on. Lastly, more effective systems of detention have been developed which ensure the due protection of citizens, but at the same time do not definitively deprive the guilt of the possibility of the redemption. Consequently, the Church teaches in the light of the gospel that the death penalty is inadmissible because it is an attack on the inviolability and dignity of the person. Vatican I's dogmatic teaching. Pope Pius X, Pascendi Dominic Gregis, on the doctrine of the modernists, the laws of evolution, everything is subject. Dogma, church worship. The books we revere as sacred, even faith itself, and the death penalty of disobedience is death. The enunciation of this principle will not astonish anybody who bears in mind that the modernists have had to say about each of these subjects. Now, here is the explicit heresy of Pope Francis. Pope Francis the Ninth. Pope Pius IX, First Vatican Council, Session 3, Canon 3 on the Faith and Reason, ex cathedra. If anyone says that it is possible that at some time, given the advancement of knowledge, a sense may be assigned to the dogmas propounded by the Church, which is different from that which the Church has understood and understands, let him be anathema. Pope Pius IX, First Vatican Council. Hence, also that understanding of its sacred dogmas must be perpetually retained, which Holy Mother Church has once declared, and there must never be a recession from that meaning under the specious name of a deeper understanding. Pope Francis clearly contradicts Vatican I by changing the stance full on. Pope Francis contradicted another pope and an infallible council. This is heresy. Therefore, the Church of Rome is a false church.
Okay, let's get into it.
Your thoughts?
Okay, so first of all, no, Pope Francis was not saying that the death penalty at all times, everywhere, is always condemned and stuff like that. In fact, actually, it was very interesting. On an airplane video, he talked about how it was there was a time where it was good when the death penalty was being employed and stuff like that, but he has prudentially just chosen not to use it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why he said it was inadmissible. He didn't say that it was wrong in of itself, but he said it was inadmissible because we have better means of preserving life in today's age, right? And the human community is not affected, and people can be thrown in jail for extended periods of time and what have you. And so it's just unnecessary to employ the death penalty. However, Catholics can differ on the Pope in regards to that issue per the document Donum Veritatis, which was specifically actually written to address when St. John Paul II was talking about not using the death penalty. And Cardinal Ratzinger, later Pope Benedict XVI, wrote about how it was okay on that specific issue to differ from the Pope because there was a tradition of using the death penalty. And that's still binding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But all Pope Francis did was make a prudential application to not use the death penalty. He didn't say it was condemned in of itself.
Okay. Because here, he does say because it is an attack on the inviolability and dignity of the person. You don't think that it would still that could be treading the lines of that?
No, not in the slightest. Because again, that word that he uses is I believe later in his letter is inadmissible, right?
Yeah, he says the death penalty is inadmissible because it is an attack on the inviolability and dignity of the person.
Yes. So that word inadmissible is used for a very specific reason. It's used because of the fact that the word inadmissible denotes, hey, prudentially, we're not choosing to use this form of justice at this time because we have other means of keeping the community safe and preserving human life.
Right. And it is correct that it's an attack on at least on the dignity. I mean, dignity, I'm searching up the definition for it. Dignity means a state or quality of being worthy of honor or respect. It's that's death penalty is you don't, that's not an honor to get to, to die for what you did wrong. It's it is an attack. And it rightly is an attack on your dignity. And inviolability, let me see the definition of inviolability. Never to be broken, infringed, or dishonored. Pretty much similar to dignity. That's correct. It is an attack on the inviolability and dignity of the person. So it's whether, and that doesn't mean it's wrong. That means that it's an attack. It is an attack. So it's whether you use it for righteousness or for goodness, it's because some people do need to go under the death penalty. So I definitely, I agree with you on that. All right, then the next comment. You think everything we got everything covered here?
I think so too. And again, there's another Michael Lofton video that goes into the whole death penalty issue way better than I am here. But it goes deep into it. And like I said, it's just a prudential application. That's it. It doesn't condemn it in of itself.
Cool. Okay. Next is Pac-Man Mama. We already talked about that. Mm-hmm. Then there is all I can say since I became a Muslim, life is so much better. Okay, never mind.
Honestly, reading most of the top comments, though, I think we addressed all the issues that they were saying. Most people were like, Pope Francis supports gay marriage, Pac-Man Mama, death penalty stuff, which that was the only one that we didn't cover during the episode.
Oh, wait, here's one. Hold on. I'll do you one better. Lumen Gentium, chapter 116. Finally, those who have not yet received the gospel related in various ways to the people of God. In the first place, we must... This is one long comment. This is even about the Pope. This is just saying, forget your Pope. Your church doesn't even teach that the only way to salvation is Christ alone. That's not a church. It's false religion.
Okay. Typical anti-Vatican II person,
Yeah.
It's like the Squidward meme. Daring are we today, sir?
we should do I would love to do a whole live stream defending Vatican II.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, bro,
brings out the encyclopedias.
1, 2, 3, 4. Books I have back at home, I've got 9 different books on Vatican II. So
oh boy, this is gonna be. Oh, I'd love to do this. We gotta plan this out. Oh man, I won't be able to do another live stream until I get back from Germany, but we'll do one. We'll do one on Vatican II. I want to do that. Here, I just want to react to some of these comments because these are kind of funny. When in the arguing over fan fiction, LOL.
You believe in Sky
You
Daddy.
believe in Sky Daddy? Listen, I don't take advice from people that masturbate, okay? So keep it to yourself next time.
My favorite quote I've ever come up with, Franco,
Hmm.
is when atheists are like, I just believe in one less God than you. It's like, well, I guess that's one more hell for you. Dun, dun, dun.
Hey yo, hey yo. Here, where in the Bible does it say to have a pope?
The Pope, the Pope is the Antichrist. You understand me?
Where in the Bible? Listen, listen, listen. I don't even want to get into the politics. I don't even want to waste my breath on it. We can do another one on that if they can just Catholic.com. Catholic Answers is right there. It's right there.
It is. It is. And I mean, they're good too. Like, I still use them, bro. They're not even like normie stuff. Like, they
Yeah.
go really, really deep into it.
Yeah. Oh,
And
here's one. There's that occasion where he said something like, "Remember the apostates, those who deny their baptisms. They are our brothers too. This is the communion of saints." And all comments I hear about, and all comments I hear about, no, that's taken out of context. Just sound like acrobatics to dodge the fact that he said something problematic. Wouldn't go as far as to say it was heresy, but that whole speech just sounded so unnecessary. His compassion and acceptance of apostates, sodomites, schismatics, and enemies of the church contrasts his desire for revolution and his hatred for traditional Catholics, who are no enemies. And that itself is the major problem in my opinion.
yes. So again, I don't mean to just be recommending another channel over and over and over again. Michael Lofton did cover the whole community of saints comment though.
Uh huh.
And what it is he's not saying, again, Pope Francis is not saying like, you can deny Christ and be a part of the community of saints and all that. There is greater nuance to that. That one I'm forgetting a little bit, but if you look up, I can even look up the video right now actually, just to get it going. I apologize. I forgot that was that was one of the contentions.
You're fine.
Uh, let's
But he's like,
see.
this person's not even saying that it's like it's not even that much of a heresy. Would arguably like it isn't. I mean, remember that, like they are technically like to some extent our brothers. I mean, they're just like wait, what's an apostate again? Aren't they like
Someone who denies the faith, someone who leaves the church.
can somebody who's an apostate they're still baptized though. So technically like they're just not fully incorporated. Wouldn't they be considered our separated brothers in Christ?
Yes, they would be.
Yeah, so that's how I would like argue that like yeah, they are our brothers too, just separated brothers in Christ. Um
And like I said, I mean, there's a whole video that Michael did with River Run that covers it too. I mean, it's like pretty straightforward, frankly, when you get down to it. That is one I forgot about. Oh, okay. The video is called Pope Francis and his comments on apostates with River Run. And I know River Run. He's a good dude.
okay, okay. Another comment is, bruh, every Roman Catholic apologist is just a lawyer for the Pope at this point. LMAO. Hey,
Oh yeah,
listen.
I think that dude used to be Catholic and he's like a Seether or something.
Hey, listen.
So
I'm a lawyer for Papa, and my pay is indulgences.
That's real. My pay is admittance to the kingdom of heaven. Meanwhile, you can go to the schismatic divine liturgy all you want. Keep coping, ortho.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we should pray for all these people who
That's
are
true.
unfortunately blinded by error.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I like I know I like to like make jokes and stuff, but like and my jokes can be offensive sometimes, but it's like I do genuinely care for like people, even like the most like repulsive like, transgender, go kill your babies, men can be women, even them like I even I like making like offensive jokes about that stuff, but at the same time it's like I really do care for them. Like if I could give them a hug, if they would have let me, I definitely would. Um,
And we
so
hope
yeah,
that
no,
they'll
that
change their ways, you know?
yeah. So
Like,
just remember that all these jokes are like they're not. It's not as if I like we hate you or anything. It's like yeah,
it's all very sad, and we should pray for people who are misled in that way.
yes sir. I think we got everything.
I think we got everything, bro.
Yeah, there was Pachamama. That people just want to
And
talk
like I
about
said,
like.
sorry for dropping the ball in the community on Saints one. I totally forgot that was even something that people brought up. It kind of got like swept under the rug. I think because people realized it wasn't what it was.
Uh-huh. Ecumenism is heresy, and so is filioque. Wait, what? I don't get that.
We say during the Nicene Creed, I believe in the Holy Spirit, which proceeds from the Father and the Son. The "and the Son" clause is the filioque way.
Uh-huh.
And Eastern Orthodox people believe that's a heresy.
Gotcha. Well, anyways, I think we got everything, and I think people are tuning
we
out
got
now.
everything.
They're starting to drop like flies. Um, oh, we got Stephen Lee in the chat. Yo, what's good, Stephen?
Steven's good. Even Steven is becoming Catholic, bro.
Yeah.
And he's
I
also
just wish
giving
he
up
didn't.
all.
I wish he didn't leak my messages though. But apart from that, kind of a little bit. Now I talked about this already, but I won't bring it back up. Anyways, Catholic answer was very helpful for me in considering Catholicism. That's awesome. I'm not gonna lie. That's one thing I'm very happy about.
That is
Um,
good.
the Pope is dope. Yes, sir. Yes, he is. All right. Well, that concludes it. We got to wrap up. This was awesome. This was an amazing episode with Pinesap. We'll be making some clips of this. We'll be not intentionally, but we will be pissing off some seeds and orthos and Protestants and the reels of this video. But hey, listen. We can't let you keep promoting lies. All right, we can't let you keep promoting lies. It's just we gotta defend Papa.
I thought you were about to riz the camera when you took that pause. You're like, listen. Sin, sin. Like
Nah.
Sin City starts playing and you like come in.
Nah,
You're like,
chill.
hey cutie, why don't you become Catholic? But no,
What's
you're
good?
it's like. But in all seriousness, like, it is our duty and it is our obligation to defend the Pope as a Catholic. It's not optional. It's
Yeah.
not a choice. It's a duty. Your duty bound to defend the Holy Father. St. John Bosco says as much, right? And every single time you do not defend the Holy Father, you allow our Lord to be crucified.
And 10,000 years in hell. No, I'm kidding.
But it is despicable how few Catholics choose to defend the Holy Father, and you can always make respectful and charitable criticisms that are not accusing the Holy Father of heresy. That is okay as a Catholic, but that doesn't turn into making long Instagram videos and posts about how Pope Francis is the Antichrist or something like that. If you do that, you will go to hell if you don't repent.
And if you like one of those videos, you're never getting out of purgatory.
You're gonna be in there forever. It'll be like a convectional oven. You'll just be like cooking in there forever.
Yeah, and for the people that think that purgatory is a shower, your skin will, you know how like your skin gets all wrinkly after a certain time? You're just gonna be a huge ball of wrinkles.
Oh, well, awesome, man.
Yeah,
Anything
cool.
else?
Well, thanks for joining, Pinesap. Definitely could have done this without you. I mean, you pretty much covered the whole thing. I really was just counting on you because I know you know your stuff on this stuff. I know very little, but wanted to let you get the spotlight on this one. And I think I made the right choice on that because you definitely did. Definitely educated me on a lot of things. You educated the audience on. You guys educated you guys on a lot of things. Oh, right, I'm looking at the camera. That's dead. I gotta look at this camera. Yeah. So. Thank you everyone for coming, everybody that showed up to the live stream, everybody that is watching the replay, thank you so much for coming in and watching. Make sure that these are the arguments. Oh, wait. I just realized there's something that I want to, hold on. I made a comment where people that said that they wanted to, or they said, like, I said, like, hey, if you want to know how to defend against these, the faith, you defend our Pope, you know, like, drop me some questions. So let me read some of these. I've heard that he's a communist and he supports gay marriage, but since he's the Pope, I know that he doesn't. How can I defend him when I hear these things? Pinesap.
So what I would do is if it's an interview or anything like that, look back at the original. Don't just look at a headline and don't even just like look, especially please avoid secular news when talking about the papacy. Don't read CNN, don't read MSNBC or Fox or anything like that. Purely read the newspaper I read is Catholic News Agency and then National Catholic Register. Those are fantastic magazines. There's also The Pillar. The Pillar is really, really good. Catholic Answers even sometimes puts out some news stuff as well. And even the Vatican News. Vatican News is great as well. Read the original sources. You got to read the original sources if you're going to properly understand any of these issues. The other thing is listen to trusted commentators on these issues too. Don't listen to people who you know have a hermeneutic of suspicion or have an agenda to press. So if they're a liberal, they're going to of course try to be as liberal as possible, right? And they're going to try to make sure the Pope appears on their side. And then if they're a mad trad, they're going to just uncharitably interpret and misrepresent the Holy Father any way they can. So
Right.
avoid those people. Listen, watch people like Michael Lofton or Dr. Robert Fastigi or the Logos Project, or you could even watch. I'm not trying to shill for our show, but we cover this a lot of these things on Logos Triumphant
Go ahead.
too.
Logos Triumphant. I'll link their thing in the description.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it's like just listen to the trusted voices that care about the church, and that's what I would say.
All right, here I got one more. But how God, your God, not my God, can bless inquisition, obscurantism, pedophilia, killer nuns who kills hundreds of indigenous children on Canada. Your same Pope asked for forgiveness on public television about the church atrocities and aberrations. Devil emoji, devil emoji, devil emoji, mad emoji, scoffing emoji, devil emoji, devil emoji.
Sometimes for people like that, I don't even know what to say.
It's like you don't even know how to respond to it.
So no. I do actually know what to say. So first of all, the Inquisition was not this bad, awful thing. Like for instance, like the Iron Maiden, that torture device that people oftentimes associate with the Inquisition, wasn't even invented till 100 years after the Inquisition in Spain even happened. There was no breaking wheel or anything like that. In fact, actually, the torture that the Inquisitors used was no more worse than what a 1930s police officer in America would use for interrogations.
A
right?
whip?
What'd you say?
A whip?
I don't even know if it was really that, honestly. It was very mild. And very few people honestly got, like, of the torture, which again really was not torture, very few people ever fell that way. Most of the people who were tried in the Inquisition were found completely innocent. And it was only the very few obstinate people who did want to hold to their error that did get tried and I think honestly rightfully punished, right?
Yeah.
And then, so, that's the whole thing with the Inquisition. If you want to read a really good book on it, there's a book called Characters of the Inquisition by Thomas William Walsh. And then there's also, there was a study put out, I think by like Cambridge or something like a long time ago that like went into it. Basically, any Catholic history book you read that cares about the church will cover the Inquisition and show that it wasn't bad.
And the Inquisition
And
was it was
good,
done
actually.
with it's based actually.
Yeah, it was.
So then there's then this person. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying it's super necessary, honestly, for what was going on in Spain.
Yeah. Then there's here's this guy saying a couple things. Pac-Man Mama, Pachamama, Zooey Mama. So that's that. We already covered that. Administering communion to Biden and calling him a good Catholic.
The good Catholic comment was only, I think, what Biden said about the Holy Father. And the ministering communion, again, not great, but it's not a heresy or anything like that. It at most is just a scandalous action.
True. And saying Luther didn't err on justification. Protestant friend mentioned these.
Okay, that classic, Pope Francis said that Luther's view on justification was fine. Let me explain to you what he meant by that. So in I believe it was 1996 or 1995, there was the joint Lutheran Catholic dialogue document on justification that came out, right? And it was basically the Lutherans admitting we don't believe in what they liked to call works and faith, right? We understand. They essentially, it was the Lutherans admitting that they understand the Catholic Church's position, which grace comes before faith because we have to have the grace to believe in God, right?
Yeah.
And then we're justified by our faith, and works are an external sign of our faith. And they admitted that and said that they had misrepresented our position, right? And that's all that Pope Francis was saying. He was saying, because there had been this dialogue and things had been, the years of just polemics and just finger pointing had been done away with. He said there would be no reason for Luther to be scandalized nowadays because Luther misunderstood the Catholic view on justification.
Gotcha. Okay. And here's why do Catholics believe that God's essence is knowable by us? This is a long comment. I ain't trying to read. Oh,
Yeah,
that.
we might cover that in a different episode.
I don't mind. Wait, this is like the last one. We
Okay.
might as well. We'll push through, but I ain't trying to read all that. All right, let's go. Benedict the 12th, 1334 to 1342, the beatific vision of God in the last days. It has such excerpts as, after the passion and death of our Lord Jesus Christ, have seen and see the divine essence by intuitive vision and even face to face, with no mediating creature serving in the capacity of an object seen, but divine essence immediately revealing itself plainly, clearly, and openly to them, and seeing thus they enjoy the same divine essence, and also that from such vision and enjoyment their souls, which now have departed, are truly blessed, and they have eternal life and rest. And also the souls of those who afterwards will depart will see that same divine essence, and it will enjoy it before the general judgment, and that such vision of the divine essence and its enjoyment makes void the acts of faith and hope in them, inasmuch as faith and hope are proper theological virtues, and that after there has begun or will be such intuitive and face-to-face vision and enjoyment in these, the same vision and enjoyment without any interruption, intermission, or departure of the aforesaid vision and enjoyment exists continuously and will continue even up to the last judgment, and from then even into eternity. This clearly espouses that the divine essence is of a seeable and thus knowable character. This issue with that is obvious because it's clearly self-refuting, because clearly you cannot see the whole divine essence and it's infinite. Thus, if you see it at all, you must see only a part of it. But if the divine essence has parts, then God is imperfect. Also, it's laughable to say that the transcendent essence of God is visible at all in any sense.
Oh, he's talking about the essences energies distinction. I will admit that's not an area of expertise of mine at all. Trinitarian theology and kind of like the whole essence of EED and absolute divine simplicity, I'm not very well versed on because part of it is it's very technical theology that I don't really want to misstep and make an error. What I would say with that though is watch Classical Theist. He covers that. And then the other thing is too, God can't be divided into parts because you can have like a formal distinction, right? But if you have a real distinction, well, then you're polytheistic. You believe that there's division in God, right? And absolute divine simplicity, I believe, was codified actually at Constantinople III, prior to even the Great Schism happening. Likewise, many Byzantine scholars have admitted that Saint Simeon of I think Saint Simeon of Thessalonica and Gregory Palamas kind of had almost like kind of a novel theology when it came to essences, energies distinction, and that it wasn't really known in the patristic era. So
Gotcha.
Not really a sufficient answer, but like I said, I would watch Classical Theist on that. He covers that, and Christian Wagner as well, Militant Thomist. He covers that as well. It's
And
just
I'm
not
sure,
my area of expertise.
and I'm sure there's probably some answer for that on Catholic.com. Maybe. Do you think there could be?
There might be, yeah. I really would recommend though Militant Thomist. I think he would cover that pretty well.
Cool. Okay. Obviously, we should respect our Pope and acknowledge at least partially his word. However, Pope himself actually fights with Latin Mass and churches that are more rooted in... Yeah, we already covered that. And I believe that's everything.
I think that's everything, man. It's exhausting, dude.
Hey, I don't know how I'm
it is
exhausted. You
hard
did most of the
work.
talking.
Well, and on like Instagram too, whenever you post something, you have people who like literally their whole thing is just going onto your channel and being like, atheism's true and my sky daddy, and then like Orthodox are like, how can the papacy be said to be in the early church? What about the Nordius? And I'm like, bro, like we haven't covered this a million times. Like, come on. It's got me dead. It's got me dead, bro.
It's got me
Like,
dead, bro. It's got me dead.
but yeah, man. It's
Wait,
all
hold on,
good. We powered through. Dude, I'm dead right now. For real, for real.
Facts. Anyways, that's everything I believe, and we're out.
We're out.
We out. Upcoming video, upcoming live streams coming soon. Defending Vatican II. Why Vatican II was based. Why James Martin is bait. No, I'm kidding.
Why Building a Bridge is my favorite book. No.
James Martin, the apologetics episode.
Guys, listen, we're not going to use any misgendering here, okay? That's not very nice. No.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I really took a change for the better when because I also used to be a rad trad. A lot of people don't I don't think many people knows, but I used to be a humongous rad trad. I was this close to being a state of a contest actually, which means you don't believe that you believe that the seat that the seat of Peter is currently empty. The seat, yeah. So that's I used to be a state of I actually was very close to becoming a state of a contest. I probably was for a split second, honestly, because I was just really I don't know. I don't think he's there. But anyways, the thing that really made me do a whole shift was when I saw the news article saying Pope Francis supports gay kids or whatever, right? And I was like, what the? And I looked into it. I just tapped the article just to see what he said, right? And I read it, and it literally was just him literally talking about what we mentioned earlier. If you have gay children, you shouldn't be disowning them. that's literally what he was saying. You shouldn't condemn them. I believe that's what he said more exactly. And I'm like, that's true. That doesn't mean he supports homosexual acts. That just means that he's that Jesus literally says you shouldn't condemn. And especially you shouldn't be condemning your kids, so it totally makes sense. And from there I was just like, cap, all these claims on Pope Francis, cap. I cannot all this just narrative on Francis, I'm not gonna fall into it. And so far I've been vindicated. So wow, look at that. Look what happens when you place your trust in your authorities.
I know, right?
It usually ends up pretty well.
Faith in the Lord or something,
Yeah. Almost as if God instituted these guys.
Dude, now you're speaking crazy talk. I don't know. Listen, I'm a Bible believing Christian, okay? I believe you just need to say that you're saved, and you are.
Hey, listen, man. You're right. I think I have to throw stuff like this. Maybe I have to throw this away because I guess this is idolatry.
It is.
Also, and what, he doesn't have dreads here, so I guess he's
And where's the damn rock concert, bro? I should be hearing some Hillsong right now.
Yeah, and he doesn't have any dreads, so I guess that's not historically accurate because I guess I think he was black.
I can't stand those dumb the recreations of what Jesus actually looked like. And it's bro, we know from iconography what Jesus actually looked like, and we know from the Shroud of Turin as well.
I know one of my buddies from work. I like him. He's a good dude, but I think he's in the the mindset of the Yahweh stuff. Those people, Christians that try to like to call Jesus Yahweh. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, well, and I try not to say God's name. That is actually God's name because it's just a Hebrew translation of when Moses says, who should I tell the people who you are? And God says, I am who I am. Yahweh translates from that statement into Hebrew.
I meant the people that kind of stress about it. They won't they refuse to call him Jesus or something. It's they won't call him that. They'll just say Yahweh. Yes, Yahweh.
or they'll say Yeshua, which
Maybe
I
that.
actually say Yeshua too, but I also say Jesus. Because I think any variation in the name of Jesus is beautiful, you know?
So yeah, like I like the guy. He's pretty cool, but he's not. But I think he's like one of those types that might be like more into the maybe Pentecostal circles or something. I don't know. I have no idea. But anyways, I was showing him my deck of playing cards, which is a Catholic deck of playing cards, and like the four kings, right? And like for the cards that have the kings on them, like the king of spades, the king of hearts, the king of diamonds, etc. They're all Jesus, right? And and he's like a different race in like all of them. So and like in one he's like bronze skin, and another one he's white, another one he's freaking ginger, and he was like giving me like he's like, that's not what he looks like. That's a fake image or whatever. I'm like, I don't care. It's like I don't care I'm like, dude, he's a ginger in this one. You think I care if he's like, oh, like, oh, he's white? I'm like, dude, I'm a Hispanic. And I'm like, I'm happy with this ginger picture. I don't care. So I was like, it's like, I don't know. I find it such a like, because I know a lot of these people. I don't know if he's like this. I have no idea. But I know a lot of people will stress about this complexion and skin and appearance of Jesus Christ, what he looked like, try to claim the black card on him. And then but then they like a Muslim will beat them in acknowledging his teachings. We were having this conversation earlier before the live stream. There are some Protestants that don't even acknowledge that you shouldn't masturbate, and Muslims acknowledge that pretty well. So it's like, and Muslims don't even revere Jesus as God. So it's like that. It's kind of like, there's people that. I feel like there's some Christians that do that. That's like it's just that I don't see it as a good sign whenever like there's a Christian that's trying to stress so much about like Jesus' appearance, because that probably means that they more care about the political message than the well, I mean, all of his, like, a lot of the messages are intertwined with politics, but they care more about the woke message than his actual message.
They do, and the whole like, oh, Jesus was black thing is a black supremacist talking point. And I mean, it's like, it's a talking point about, well, there's one group that likes to really stress that, but then blasphemes Jesus. But I don't think I need to mention that on your podcast, so I'll avoid that, just so you don't get it taken down. But
Yeah.
It's political laundering is what it is, and it's trying to appeal to Christians' good, Catholics' good faith in order to get them to support certain nation states or policies or politics that have nothing to do with the gospel, right?
Listen,
and that's sick.
I think Jesus was albino with dreads.
Dreads. What's funny is, like, when we actually think about it, Jesus was likely olive skinned, like the kind of like the people of Syria. Like, you would have looked very much like a person from Syria. We're kind of more like olive skin complexion.
Yeah, he was Jewish. It's like,
a Jewish Galilean.
I know some people might say like, oh, but that's like they could still be black. It's like, listen, bro, Jesus didn't have dreads. It's like, just leave it alone, dog.
Listen, bruh.
Listen, bruh.
Listen here, dude. Okay.
If you care more, if Jesus had 100% melanin more than you care if Jesus was 100% based, then I think we have an issue here. Okay.
I think there's a little bit of an issue there.
Yeah. But anyways, we've been going on long enough. It's very fun. It's always fun with Pinesap, isn't it, folks? But yeah. Anyways, shall we read the chat real quick? See what people are saying before we leave.
Oh yeah, sure, man. That sounds great.
All right, let's check. Let's check what people are saying.
Don't say the N-word. What the? Psycho faces down.
Someone said, "Don't say the N-word," and that person just dabs. Can you do a stream on Eastern Orthodoxy? Oh, the Inquisition was as base as Normans think it was. It's very based.
Super based.
Anyways, cool. Well, we're gonna get going now. Thank you guys so much for coming in. This was a long stream. Definitely replay it. Thank you so much, Pinesap, for coming in, and we'll catch you guys later. Okay, take care, and go make sure to follow Pinesap. Go make sure to look at his social media down below. Make sure to go look at my social media down below. All my links down are in the description. and go follow my Instagram. I actually just got verified on my Instagram, so go check that out. And take care. Have a good one.